thought I would analyse 3 news reports from 3 separate publications to work out the situation in the Ukraine. So that would be Paul Craig Roberts, the Hamadier, and the New York Post. So Paul Craig Roberts used to be in, I think he used to work in the Treasury Department, but he's had academic appointments at Virginia Tech, Tulane University, University of New Mexico, Stanford University, where he was Senior Research Fellow in the Hoover Institution, George Mason University, where he had a joint appointment as Professor of Economics and Professor of Business Administration, and Georgetown University, where he held the William E. Simon Chair in Political Economy in the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Dr. Roberts was associate editor and columnist for the Wall Street Journal and columnist for Business Week and the Scripps Howard News Service. So he's worked in government. He was confirmed in office by the US Senate for his appointment as Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Economic Policy. But he is now out of favor because he doesn't agree with neoliberalism and neoconservatism. What I like about his style is that it is simple, and I find that just reading his articles make a lot of things clear more quickly than reading long articles by other people. It's because he speaks clearly and concisely, and that's what I approve of. And even if he's wrong on some things, you'll at least know where he's at, and you can agree or disagree with his facts and logic. So what does he say about it? So the title is Chancellor Scholz punishes Germans for Russia's recognition by turning off natural gas. It's a puzzling title, but it's meant to be comical. It's a throwaway joke about how most Western nations are governed by leaders who don't care about the national interest. And this means that what I offer, which is a definition of nationalism as government in the national interest, should be of great interest to people who don't want their energy prices to rocket. And this includes both ordinary domestic consumers as well as businesses. Ultimately, it should be a source of concern for all, rich or poor, that our politicians do not care to promote the national interest. We suspect that they're all being bribed to do things that are contrary to the national interest. And we should protest against this more robustly and with more focus and effectiveness. So Europe depends on Russia for 46% of Europe's gas imports. It is Europe, not Russia, that needs to fear sanctions. It's really as simple as that. So why is Germany doing this? Because obviously it's been told by America to do this. I'm not going to bother reading anything, other than the New York Post that talks about Russian aggression. You can, make up your own mind about what's happening. So basically, Germany's been trying to get cheaper Russian gas, and America doesn't like it, and has basically said, don't do it. It's happened before with Britain when Britain wanted to build a high-speed link and wanted the Chinese to do it. I don't quite know whether it's going to happen anymore, but certainly with the installation of 5G, America has basically put its foot down. So, sure what's happening with the high-speed link. I better look it up now. Okay, this is an old article, 2014. It's under construction. All right. I didn't mean to talk about this. Sorry. Okay, back to Russia. It says Germany will put an immediate halt to the certification of Russian-backed Nord Stream 2 pipeline, Chancellor Olaf Scholz has announced after Russia recognized the two breakaway Donbass regions of Donetsk and Lugansk. So basically, they're part of the Ukraine, and mainly Russians live there, and it is a bit complicated, isn't it? But we know that the West has been making trouble over over Ukraine for quite a while now. And obviously Russia feels obliged to look after Russians in that area. And we also know that Ukraine was part of the Russian Empire. In fact, I remember Chekhov complaining about having to get a passport to get out of Ukraine to visit Moscow. So Chekhov, famous Russian playwright, lived in the Ukraine, okay, people? So basically, Ukraine, whatever its current status now, is really part of the Russian Empire. I know the Soviet Union has intervened and it is now the Russian Federation, but basically it's kind of Russian, all right? So let's have a look at Chekhov, this most Russian of playwrights. So unless I'm much mistaken or misremember, okay, he took a trip to the Ukraine, all right. And he was born, where was he born? In somewhere called Taganrog, port on the Sea of Azov in southern Russia. Oh, right. So that's so that's not quite right. I thought Chekhov lived in the Ukraine, but I'm not sure where Taganrog is. Somewhere called Oblast, Rostov Oblast. Which was a Greek settlement. It was part of the Crimea. Okay, I'm a bit vague now about whether the Crimea is near the Ukraine. Okay, so I need a map. Sorry about this, people. Crimea, Ukraine map. Okay, so Crimea is the bit. Oh gosh. So the Crimea is in the Black Sea, and we know about the Crimean War, which is gosh, what was the Crimean War about? I know it was enormously complicated, but it was basically about Russia. Oh God, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have prepared it better. Crimean War. See, it's a bit complicated, isn't it? A bit complicated. Crimean War was a military conflict fought from 1853 to 1856 in which Russia lost to an alliance of France, the Ottoman Empire, the United Kingdom, and Piedmont, Sardinia. So basically, France and Turkey and the UK and a bit of Italy stopped Russia from getting a warm water port. The immediate cause of the war involved the rights of Christian minorities in Palestine, which was part of the Ottoman Empire. The French promoted the rights of Roman Catholics, and Russia promoted those of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Longer-term causes involved the decline of the Ottoman Empire, the expansion of the Russian Empire in the preceding Russo-Turkish Wars, and the British and French preference to preserve the Ottoman Empire to maintain the balance of power in the concert of Europe. It has been widely noted that the causes in one case involving an argument over a key, had never revealed a greater confusion of purpose, but led to a war that stood out for its notoriously incompetent international butchery. Right, so it was obviously an imperial war, and we know that lots of people died in the Crimean War. So, if I could just describe it for you, Ukraine is in the middle, Russia is to the right, and Crimea is in the south. So the Crimea is a peninsula and is now, I guess, well, part of Russia. But the Ukraine used to be part of Russia. So let me have a look at the Russo-Ukrainian War. The Russo-Ukrainian War is an ongoing and protracted conflict that started in February 2014, primarily involving Russia and pro-Russian forces on one hand and Ukraine on the other. The war has centered on the status of Crimea and the ports of Donbass, which are internationally recognized as part of Ukraine. Tensions between Russia and Ukraine erupted, especially from 2021 to 2022, when it became apparent that Russia was considering launching a military invasion of Ukraine. Okay, so this is very recent history, and we see there's something called the Soviet-Ukrainian War. So it's one of those breakaway regions of the Russian Empire, and it shouldn't surprise us that if you have a large empire, every now and then you get bits of your empire wanting to go their own way. So the Russians have always had a bit of a problem with the Ukraine. So it goes back a long way, I mean, way back to the Russian Revolution, I should say. So really, there was an attempt of a war of independence by the Ukrainian People's Republic against the Bolsheviks, and obviously it was put down, and there's obviously a lot of bad feeling. Going all the way back to 100 years, long time. So I should now go back to this article, the RT article. I'll tell you it's from RT, you might as well know. So, in a statement issued on Tuesday, Scholz said the green light cannot be given for the pipeline to begin pumping supplies in the light of the current standoff between Russia and Ukraine. Given Russia's latest action, the certification cannot go ahead, Scholz told reporters. This is now about taking concrete steps related to the situation we have seen now. So really it is about it's about Nord Stream 1 and 2. It's going to be construction of the pipeline, which is intended to link to the gas fields of Siberia to consumers in Western Europe via a port in northern Germany was completed last year. However, it has been waiting for approval from Berlin's regulators to begin operations. Last week, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said that the delays to approve were known to Kiev's lobbying efforts. Today, we are successfully blocking the Russian hybrid gas weapon Nord Stream and will continue to do so. Ukrainian officials have consistently opposed construction of the pipeline, which could see supplies transported under the Baltic Sea instead of solely through the country's overland network of Soviet-built pipes. Kiev has said that the project amounts to an effort to undermine European energy security and warned it stands to lose billions of dollars in transit fees if Moscow were to turn off the taps. So Ukraine is basically saying that we don't want Western Europe to get its gas using Nord Stream 2, which goes under the Baltic Sea. They want it instead to go through the country's overland network of Soviet-built pipes. So, in order that the Ukrainians can charge the final consumer of the gas the higher cost of getting it through the country's overland network of Soviet-built pipes. Washington has previously said Nord Stream is a threat and imposed sanctions on companies involved in the construction. However, Germany had continued to support the project despite objections from Ukraine, the US and other nations, including Poland and the Baltic states. So we have to remember that Poland and the Baltic states are now part of NATO, right? Let me check. Poland, NATO. Yep, it's a NATO member. I think they're all, with the exception of Montenegro. Yep, they joined. So, and when you hear people mention the Minsk Agreement, it's basically the agreement that the Americans made to the Russians, saying that we will never, we will allow you to have a buffer state, and we will never we will never make the Baltic states become NATO members, but that happened. The day before Scholz's announcement, Putin held a televised national address in which he said, quote, "I deem it necessary to make a decision that should have been made a long time ago, to immediately recognize both as sovereign states. The move," he said, was in response to years of fighting in Ukraine's war-torn east and to Kiev's attempts to drag foreign states into conflict with our country with its efforts to join NATO. So basically, Russia wants a buffer state. That was what the Eastern Bloc used to be. And America is saying, no, we're not, although we promised you with the Minsk Agreement, we've gone back on our promise now, and you can't, So 2015 was a Minsk Agreement. It was a bit complicated. It's also called the Minsk Protocol. gosh. Okay, I'm not going to read it to you because I barely understand it myself. Let's go back to bits that I can read you and understand a little bit. Leaders of the breakaway republics and officials in Kiev accused each other of carrying out heavy shelling along the contact line for several days. Last week, Donetsk and Lugansk announced that they had begun evacuating civilians to Russia amid what they claim is a sharp spike in hostilities, and have ordered the mobilization of all able-bodied men to be ready to fight in a potential conflict. So basically, Donetsk and Lugansk were part of Crimea, but they're Russian majority, and Russia feels it has to defend Russian people. Ukraine rejects claims it is preparing to attack, with Alexei Danilov, the Secretary of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, claiming that there is an attempt to provoke our forces and that Kiev's troops can only open fire if there will be a threat to the lives of our service members. So obviously they're trying to provoke each other. So what does the Hamadir say? The Hamadir is a Orthodox Jewish newspaper, and it kind of it's supposed to observe the Jewish prohibitions against evil speech, and so it refrains from all kinds of commentary. So what I'm about to read to you is actually very short and only has 3 paragraphs. The 12 of you now. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry I'm not really that good on foreign policy, but thank you for coming. Okay, it begins. President Joe Biden announced the US was ordering financial sanctions against Russian banks and oligarchs on Tuesday, declaring that Moscow had flagrantly violated international law in what he called the beginning of a Russian invasion of Ukraine. None of us will be fooled by Russian President Vladimir Putin's claims about Ukraine, Biden said, and he said more sanctions could be on the way if Putin proceeds further. Biden said he was also moving additional US troops to the Baltic states on NATO's eastern flank bordering Russia. Biden joined the 27 European Union members who unanimously agreed on Tuesday to levy their own initial set of sanctions targeting officials over their actions in Ukraine. Well, I guess Britain is not the only poodle of America, boys and girls. So now, finally, I'll read you the New York Post. I like the New York Post. It seems to me that it tries to tell the truth. So the headlines today says Germany suspends Nord Stream 2 pipeline over Russia invasion of Ukraine. And you have to listen to the words very carefully. Germany halted the certification of the controversial Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipeline Tuesday after Russia recognized 2 separatist-held regions of Ukraine as independent states and dispatched peacekeeping forces to the region. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz described Monday's announcement by Russian President Vladimir Putin as a serious break of international law. Now it's up to the international community to react to this one-sided, incomprehensible, and unjustified action by the Russian president, Scholz said, adding that Berlin needed to send a clear signal to Moscow that such actions won't remain without consequences. Germany previously resisted suspending the pipeline, which was completed in September and would transport fuel directly from Russia to Germany under the Baltic Sea, depriving the Kiev government of lucrative transit fees. So that's why the Ukrainians are upset with Russia. And this is from the New York Post, boys and girls. Earlier this month, President Biden vowed to penalize Russia by blocking the pipeline in the event of a renewed invasion of Ukraine. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2, Biden said at a February 7th press conference with Scholz. At the time, the German Chancellor said he and Biden were absolutely united about the issue, but pointedly refused to say the words Nord Stream 2. Because he still wants it, right? He still wants it. I don't really get Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. I think they come from different parts of Russia. Let's carry on. There is a map at the bottom of this. Voters made clear that if Russia invaded Ukraine, we would act with Germany to ensure Nord Stream 2 does not move forward, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, how do you pronounce her name? I don't know, tweeted Tuesday. We have been in close consultations with Germany overnight and welcome their announcement. We will be following up with our own measures today. On Monday night, Putin announced that Russia recognized the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic as independent states and ordered Moscow's forces to perform peacekeeping functions, potentially laying the groundwork for a full-scale invasion. On Tuesday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russian recognition of the rebel regions extended to territory currently held by Ukraine. Since last week, eastern Ukraine has been increasing shelling as well as fresh reports of tanks and military hardware. In the last 24 hours, Ukrainian officials say 2 soldiers have been killed and 12 have been wounded by attacks by pro-Russian separatists. Over the weekend, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged Western nations to impose sanctions against Russia before any incursion could take place. So basically, there's the Ukraine and the eastern bits of it that want to be with Russia. That is technically part of Ukraine, and Russia decided to recognize it. It's a kind of legal technicality. So if these regions that were formerly part of the Ukraine became independent republics, and it would be, the narrative would be that these independent republics looked to Russia for help in keeping the Ukrainians at bay. So, the whole thing could be construed as a defensive gesture rather than an aggressive gesture. So it's a legal technicality. But the most important thing you should note so far is the 4th paragraph. 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 4th para Germany previously resisted suspending the pipeline, which was completed in September and would transport fuel directly from Russia to Germany under the Baltic Sea, depriving the Kiev government of lucrative transit fees. Right, so this is really what it's all about. Since late last week, eastern Ukraine has seen increased shelling as well as. Sorry, I've just read that. Okay, now I'm looking at the map of Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2. So they go under the Baltic Sea from Russia to Germany. So Nord Stream 1 goes from Vyborg and Nord Stream 2 goes from Ust-Luga. And I think that's in Siberia. So final paragraph, it says, you're telling me that it's 100% that the war will start in a couple of days. Then what are you waiting for? He told reporters at the Munich Security Conference in Germany. This is what the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said. So obviously the Ukrainians want NATO to be mean to Russia. We don't need your sanctions after the bombardment will happen, and after our country will be fired at, or after we will have no borders for, or after we will have no economy or parts of our country will be occupied. Why would we need those sanctions then? I'm not quite sure what he's saying. I guess he's saying you should have, we want you to be a bit more aggressive towards Russia. And that's the end of the article. I'll read your comments now. I hope I've been reasonably clear, but it's a developing situation, but I think you get the gist of it. Germany really wants Nord Stream 2, but America is twisting its arm and saying, no, you can't have it. The way it successfully twisted Britain's arm when it said, we want 5G and we're going to go for the cheapest and the best one, and it's China. And America said, no, you can't. We forbid it. We don't care if you've agreed and everything. You can't have it. Because we don't want you to do it. And if you do, there's going to be trouble. That's basically what the Americans have done to the British, all right? So you just understand that. Yep, so the light says Germany said no to Nord Stream 2 today because Biden wanted Germany to do that. So Konop says, seems like it's a reality now that Russia wants to integrate all ethnic Russian speakers into her realm. Well, that makes sense. It's the principle of national self-determination, innit? But predictably, Konop calls these people, these Russians who want to be protected by Russia, enemies of the West. I don't think Germany is an enemy of the West. I mean, Germany wants, a reliable source of energy. And why would you blame Germany for wanting a reliable source of energy? We need energy. We've been lucky so far in the UK having a mild winter, but what if we weren't having a mild winter? It could easily get very nasty and cold, right? So Dan Kleiman says, I just don't get Germany sabotaging the deal for cheaper gas. I'm just saying that, you know, that all the EU member states have basically been told by America to say, you have to, we will impose sanctions on Russia, because you told us to, right? That's basically what's happened. Because obviously, if you live in Europe, you want cheaper energy, you want a reliable source of energy, and it would be in your national interest, ConOps, to get cheaper energy because, we all need electricity for all kinds of things. So it doesn't make sense not to be nice to Russia. It doesn't make any sense at all to kowtow to America. But, unfortunately, Western nations do not have leaders that promote the national interest. And that is why I want to define nationalism as government in the national interest. Can we talk about that? Do we have to obey America? Just because America says so? America doesn't care about European nations. It just wants to throw its weight about, right? And Boris, what is he doing? Whatever he's doing, it won't be in the national interest because we know he doesn't have principles. No, I didn't know the Ukrainian president is Jewish. Now, look, Dan, it's obvious that before the German elections, Merkel was trying her damnedest to get the deal through because, it was the last thing she could do for the Germans, right? To get them, a stable supply of gas. And that was what she was pulling out all the stops for. But unfortunately, she's gone. You shouldn't have, you shouldn't really be having elections for, trivial reasons. If you've got a good leader and they're doing the right thing, well, why get rid of them? It makes no sense. Yes, unfortunately, empires love war because they're just acknowledging the origins of their empire. All empires are acquired by war. That's right, the Ukraine was part of Russia. Okay, you see we're talking about the Crimean War. Okay, sorry about. I should have shared the screen. You would have found it helpful. I'm sorry. I don't always think of everything, but yeah, you will want to see the map of the Nord Stream thing. Okay, so we can have a look at the pictures. Germany suspends Nord Stream 2 pipeline over Russian of Russian invasion of Ukraine. Let me enlarge the screen. Oh, I don't know how to do it. Never mind. You can see it, can't you? Or is it too small? Full screen? Can I do full screen? I don't know how to do it. Sorry about that. You can look at this. Okay, this video.
Scholz said, "It's been contentious since the day it was proposed. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline was due to bring gas from Russia to Western Europe, but now it faces a shutdown before it's even begun operations." German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said Tuesday that he was putting its approval on ice. He says the situation has to be reassessed in light of Russia's actions in Ukraine.
Ich habe das Bundeswirtschaftsministerium heute gebeten.
I have asked the German Economy Ministry today to withdraw the report on the analysis of energy supply guarantees from the regulator. It sounds technical, but it's the required procedure so that there can be no certification of the pipeline now.
Erfolgen kann.
The decision is sure to please Washington. Successive US administrations have opposed the pipeline, saying it makes Europe dangerously dependent on Russian supplies. Nord Stream 2 was also strongly opposed by Ukraine, which earns transit fees from the current line running through its territory. Now Scholz says Germany's economy ministry will ensure that the project cannot be certified for use, though that may leave Berlin with a headache. Europe's largest economy depends on Russia for around half of its energy needs. Even so, the economy ministry says gas supplies can be secured without Nord Stream 2.
Okay, so what we're looking at is, well, the pipeline, which was completed in September, and then the landfall facilities of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline in Ludmin, northern Germany. And Olaf Scholz having his arm twisted because he had to say that Vladimir Putin was guilty of a serious break of international law. So it's a military truck drives along a street after Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the deployment of Russian troops to 2 breakaway regions in eastern Ukraine following the recognition of their independence. And that was yesterday. And finally, we have the map. So here we have the bottom is East Germany. I know Greifswald is East Germany. Yes, because I just know the name, and I don't get why there are 2. Okay, they're basically 2 pipelines. So the gas might come from Viborg and Ust-Luga. And they all go under the Baltic Sea, and the Ukraine is just really, really mad at missing out on all those transit fees. And this is what it's really all about. And obviously it's in the interest of the Germans to get a secure supply of gas, and also it would be in the interest of Europe to get a secure supply of gas, but nobody cares. Or no European politician is going to fight properly hard enough to get a decent supply of gas for his or her country. Instead, they've all, being vassal states of the US, have all agreed to impose sanctions on Russia just for selling gas to the Germans. It makes no sense, does it? Yes, Dan Kleiman, you're so right that they're scared that they have to, so scared of America that they have to sabotage their own Nord Stream deal when they most need cheap gas. And you are German, aren't you? It must be so frustrating for you. Yes, of course the EU is divided. You know, when I think of the EU, I'm reminded of the first emperor of China. So what he did was basically he burnt all the books of the other, pesky languages that weren't quite his, because he didn't want them to be divided along linguistic lines, and he wanted to unify his empire. So he basically burnt their books, and with all their pesky languages, and basically said, you all have to speak. Oh, no. I mean, what the situation in China now is that the words, the script is the same, but different regions of China will pronounce the words in a different way, and so. Well, maybe Europe needs a first empire, first emperor, and I know that you have all these conquerors trying to do that. From Napoleon, Charlemagne, Napoleon, Hitler, and they couldn't quite get it done. So yeah, you're right, Conops. The EU is divided. Yeah. Now you realise it, Conops. I'm not being against European interests by pointing out that we need a stable and cheap supply of energy. And unfortunately, Western nations don't have leaders that are fighting for their own national interests. They're more interested in cucking to America. Oh, talking about the CIA, the light. There was a complaint about the CIA people complaining about their working conditions. It was quite funny. I'll show that to you in a bit. Poland, God knows what they think they're doing. I mean, Poland is pretty much divided, and I've spoken to a few nationalist Poles over the years, and it's like they really hate Russia. It's almost sort of disturbing how much they hate Russia. Ukrainians hate Jews. It's like, well, Christians hate Jews. You know, I guess they're more unreconstructed in the Ukraine. I mean, it's so obvious that Europe should be, you know, getting on better with Russia because there's just no need to. Well, well, the Americans are, well, a bit mad. So, I mean, they're not even thinking of their own national interests, and they certainly don't care about European nations. So it's sad that we don't have any European leaders prepared to defy America. So, you know, all these sort of crazy end of the world scenarios, calling China Gog and Magog. You know, China's not warlike at all. You know, it's just projection to pretend that China wants war when, well, it's actually the Europeans, the Westerners, who have been invading other people's countries. Yes, Russia only wanted its ports free of NATO or other troops and housing nukes there. Well, neoconservatism is unsustainable. It's not that I am against imperialism per se, but you know, it has to be successful imperialism, sustainable imperialism, not the kind of bullying imperialism. Yeah, we need to get national self-confidence up, but we won't have self-confident nations if we don't have self-confident leaders, and I'm afraid the way we choose our leaders leaves something to be desired. Okay, so Zelensky was born of Jewish parents. You seem to have a lot of information about him, and I'm going to read it out because of the pesky Russian names. Anyway, you cut and pasted it from Wikipedia. Well, I'm sorry, Don Climber, you didn't like it. I mean, I was explaining it to myself, and I know that Stephen James, whom you don't know, but anyway, he's been helpful to me from time to time, and he's all upset about the whole thing, and I was really doing it more for his benefit than anybody else. And I find that when I explain things to other people, I also explain it better to myself. Oh, really? It's Conops and Dubin and Zubedo? Adam? Well, what did they talk about that was so unproductive? Did they have a fight or something? All right. So I've been talking about Nord Stream 2 for about over an hour. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry it's not one of my better streams, but the viewing figures have been healthy enough. Thank you for showing an interest. I know Academic Agent is streaming, so I'm doubly honoured that you have chosen to come here. And I might have a listen to Zubaida and Duvid having a fight. Oh, and if you want a explanation of it, I'll post it in the chat for you. I quite like the Duran because, you know, when somebody explains something and it makes sense, and that's why you like it. Well, that's why I like it anyway. It makes sense. Not because, you know, you're just going to be, you know, loyal to your country, you know, whatever. It's like, you know, it makes sense. Their explanation makes sense, and that's why you find it more believable. Okay, thank you all for coming. Talk to you again sometime soon.